I didn't even say good evening or anything like that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our fifth Prosper in Northumberland event. My name is York Belsman from Star 93.3 and 107.9 The Breeze and the new Magic 96.7 all the way up in Peterborough. It's a pleasure to be doing this again. It's nice to see so many people come out here tonight, people that are definitely interested in their businesses and becoming a success right here in Northumberland. For those of you that are new to Prosper in Northumberland, this started out when local media noticed that there was definitely a negative feeling amongst businesses and wanted everybody to band together for the greater good. There had to be a way that we could attract those that live here to actually shop here, and we all support each other. We started with an event at the Park Theatre in Coburg featuring local businesses that had been successful through the recession up until that point, with some question and answers, some questions for them, some questions from the audience, and they got to answer and tell everybody, kind of share what their success story was. That night, we had an amazing speaker, Barb Stegman, talk about entrepreneurship, about getting started, about doing business, being successful in business. A terrific first event for us for sure. The next event, we moved to the Capitol Theatre in Port Hope, and we had Donald Cooper. Donald was a very dynamic speaker who talked about customer service, how important it is to make your customers number one. And he certainly was a great speaker for us as well. We did another panel discussion that night as well. Our third event was focused around downtown vitalization. We had Kennedy Lawson Smith, and this time we moved to the Keeler Center in Colburn. Kennedy told some great stories about projects that she worked on throughout different downtowns that really grasped the community and made them realize they had a vibrant downtown that they could come to. She was an awesome speaker as well. Our next one, we moved to the Aaron Theatre in Campbellford. We heard Jeff Milchin emphasize kind of like a synergy between businesses, working together for the greater good, combining your resources to make sure you've got the best bang for your buck and your customers got the best deal they could from you. That brings us here tonight to Brighton. We've pretty much been throughout the entire county so far. Tonight's speaker, Mr. Ken Wong, he's been on the cover of the Canadian Business Magazine. He has a place in the Canadian Marketing Hall of Legends. He's the distinguished professor of marketing at Queen's School of Business. Tonight he's talking about marketing, myths, mistakes, and mystique. Please welcome Professor Ken Wong.
Delighted to be here tonight. Flattered to have been asked, especially coming on the heels of the four preceding speakers, who I'm sure delivered great talks to you. Hopefully we can continue that tonight. I am going to talk a little bit about marketing myths, marketing mistakes, and marketing mystique. But before I do, I want to give you a little sense of the background behind this talk. Because while this is the first time I've delivered this particular speech, I have to tell you in all honesty, I started writing this talk in 2009. And I started writing it as we came into this recession. And the original title of the talk was, in fact, How to Market in a Down Economy. And the speech you're going to hear tonight is really talking about some of the things that I discovered over the last 4 years as I toured around North America finding out how people should market in some very uncertain economic times. To set the stage, though, I want to start by asking you three questions. Three questions that will really explain the approach I'm going to take with you tonight. Okay? And we're a relatively small group, so feel free, just shout out your answer or raise your hand as appropriate. Fair enough? All right. First question is this. Do you think it's a good idea to be in top physical shape?
Yes.
Anyone disagree? No? Okay. Perfect consensus. Second question. If I was to ask you, what should I do to get into, or clearly in my case, to stay in, top? It's not a joke. What should I do to get into or stay in top physical shape? What would you tell me to do?
Just do it.
Just do it, right? Get out there, exercise, right? Anything else?
Create a plan.
Create a plan, quit smoking, eat better, very good. All right, third and final question. How many of you are, just simple show of hands, how many of you are in top physical shape? Sir, I guess it depends what shape we're talking. It's an interesting commentary, isn't it? How it can be that we can all agree on this objective, how it can be that we can all know the so-called best practices required to achieve that objective, and yet when push comes to shove, only a handful of us raise our hands and indicate that we've actually chosen to execute those best practices. Well, such is exactly the case when it comes to dealing with an uncertain economy. I have to tell you, in some 30-odd years of teaching, there is no topic I have ever researched where I can tell you there is more unequivocal advice on how to deal with recessionary times, that there is no piece of business research I've ever seen where the results are more universal in their conclusion, that there is a right way to do it, and yet for some reason close to 40% of all businesses will fail in the 3-year period following each and every recession. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And if you ask yourself, well, how can that happen? How can we have all this failure in the presence of all of this knowledge? I mean, it's a little bit, I know, it must seem like asking, how can there be all these single women in the presence of men like me? That too is not a joke. Well, the answer is simple, isn't it? It's just like getting in shape, right? The reason we choose not to execute those best practices is life gets in the way. Yeah, it's too cold outside. I've got a cold. I'm busy at work. The kids are homesick. There always seems to be something else that takes priority over what it is we're supposed to be doing. And the same is true when it comes to marketing in uncertain times. There are always seems to be other things that take priority. And one of the things that I came to realize is the reason why these other things take priority is because there's a mythology about marketing. There's a mythology about how it works. There's a mythology about what we should be doing. And most of that mythology seems to have common sense behind it. Well, tonight we're going to try and dispel some of that common sense mythology and replace it instead with some facts. Some facts that hopefully will help you determine how to run your business, how to think about marketing your community, and indeed for those of you with career aspirations, perhaps even how to think about marketing yourself. To start with, we have to understand that the number one thing that creates bad marketing is a basic mythology. And that mythology is that everything that marketing does that is good becomes good only to the extent that it generates volume. That the whole marketing game is predicated on selling stuff. Lots and lots of stuff. It's not. It's not. The number one thing I hope you draw away from tonight is that the reality we face is that the number one goal of marketing is very simple. It is survival. Survival in a world filled with margin-sucking maggots. Now, you notice I said margin-sucking maggots. I didn't say sales-sucking maggots. I didn't say revenue-sucking maggots. I was very specific. I said margin-sucking maggots. Because the goal of great marketing is not to sell more stuff. The goal of great marketing is to produce more profit. And everything that we do in marketing is really evaluated and assessed relative to its impact on profitability. And the problem we find is when volume becomes the goal, instead of profitability, it breeds and encourages a whole number of practices which frankly will ultimately destroy the bottom line of your business. Will ultimately destroy the bottom line. Let me explain why I say this. First of all, the beautiful thing about profit as an objective is that it is just that. It's objective. It's void of philosophy or political commentary. It's void of opinion. Profitability is defined by generally accepted accounting practice and tax law. You can define it differently than I'm going to show you, but if you do, you're going to jail. The profitability we worry most about, of course, is this term right here, net income. And net income is simply the product of two numbers. It's the amount we make on every unit that we sell times the number of units we sell. And that unit margin, the amount we make on every unit we sell, is simply the difference between our price and our cost. And the number of units we sell is simply the product of two numbers. It's the size of our market times the percentage of the market that buys from us, what we call market share. Everybody see that? Simple math, isn't it? Simplest math in the world. You don't even need to be Asian like me and good with numbers. But you know what people forget? Is that hidden in this very simple, elegant statement is the most fundamental law of all in business. And that is that if marketing or anything else we do is going to prove its worth, is going to justify its existence, it justifies its existence in the context of helping us make more money. And that means it has to have one or more of four outcomes. It lets us get our prices up. It lets us get our costs down. It lets us get a bigger share of the existing pie. Or it lets us take a small pie and turn it into a big one. That's it. By definition, there are only four ways to make a buck. And if your marketing isn't producing higher prices, lower costs, bigger shares, or bigger markets, then your marketing dollars are being wasted. You'd be better off doing no marketing at all. Because spending money on marketing to do the wrong things will do more damage than doing no marketing at all. The problem we have is that we tend to obsess with this volume question. And in fact, the volume question, how do I sell more, is the wrong way to go. Instead, what we should be asking is, how can marketing improve my prices? How can marketing reduce my costs? If I am going to use marketing to chase volume, is it the best sources of volume? Or am I basically chasing customers who are in and of themselves little more than margin-sucking magnets? Well, let's start with the big question. What's more important? Price, cost, or volume? Here's what the stats tell us. For the average North American business, every time I take a product scheduled to sell for $1, and I cut the price of that product by one single penny, one lousy percent, the moment I do that in the average North American business, I decrease my profitability somewhere in the order of 11%. 11%. Now you can do this calculation for your own business or any business, and I strongly advise you do. If you were to look at your net income as a percentage of your total sales, we would find that in the average North American business, it runs about 9% of sales. When we take 1% off price, that 1% on our income statement starts as a 1% decrease in top-line revenue. But ultimately, it works its way through that income statement to become a 1% decrease in net income. And so the price cut may be 1%, but the income cut is 1 out of 9 or 11%. What does that tell you if the only way that you can build volume is by giving customers a 10% coupon? Putting the product on a tax-free sale that effectively takes 13 or 15% off the price. What does it tell you if the only way you can sell a meal in your restaurant is buy one, get the second for half price? It's not too long before you quickly discover, yes, you may make a sale, but you're not going to make any money, are you? In fact, if you really think about it, you are denying yourself the entire reason for wanting to live in this lovely part of the country. You just traded off work-life balance. You're actually working harder and making less in the process. That's what happens when we get obsessed with volume and start sacrificing price in an effort to win. But that's only the start of it. You see, when you start cutting price, when you get obsessed with volume and feel price cutting is the only thing you can do, you actually set the stage for a far worse set of consequences. Take, for example, a business like Air Canada. Air Canada is a service business, right? Service business, just like most of you are in, certainly anyone in retail understands, it really is a service business. And Air Canada operates under a very simple reality, right? How much would you pay for a seat on a flight that just took off? Your dream destination. Do you know, at Queen's, we say if you give a positive answer, you belong at the Ivy School of Business. The seat has no value, doesn't it? And so what happens is somebody at Air Canada in management very logically says, you know, once that flight takes off, that seat has no value. It has no inventory capability. So anything we can get for that seat, get it. Just get it. Right? Put it on sale. Anything we can get is a positive contribution to our performance. And so they take a $1,000 seat and they discount it down to $250 on a seat saver sale. A 75% price cut. What's 75 times 11? Well, it's a lot more than 100, isn't it? You're not just going bankrupt now, you're going bankrupt really, really fast. But it gets even worse. Because at some point, some customer who paid the $1,000 sits beside the customer paying $250 and discovers they just paid $750 more. And you know what they say? Man, am I ever stupid. What the hell was I thinking? Why am I paying $1,000 for the seat this guy got for $250? You know what? Next time, I'm not getting ripped off again. I'm not paying $1,000. You know what I'm paying? I'm paying what this seat's worth. You know what it's worth? $250, because man, that's what you were willing to sell it for, isn't it? That's what you were willing to sell it for. And in the worst case of all, the buyer sits there and says, well, let me see if I understand this. It's $1,000 unless they're hurting, and then it's $250. So you know what? I'm going to make sure they hurt. I'm going to threaten to pull my business every time I'm asked for it. Why? Because if I create enough heat, they'll cut price down to $250, and I'll save money. Yes, every customer is a potential margin-sucking magnet. And frankly, part of the job of marketing is to exterminate those magnets, right? To make certain that they're not allowed to propagate. Because the consequence of ceding to that magnet is deadly. You see, when we take $750 out of a price, the margin, that difference between price and cost, it gets highly compressed. And when it gets compressed, we have no choice. We need relief. So what do? Well, we can't raise price back up, so we end up cutting costs. But we don't cut costs a little. We have to cut costs a lot. You see, for the average North American business, every time I reduce my cost by 1%, my profit only goes up by 7.8%. Now I say only goes up by 7.8%. Let's be honest, most businesses would give their right arms to improve profitability by close to 8%. But when the factor requiring the price cut, the cost reduction is a price cut, here's the reality. Every time you give away 1% of price, you need to reduce your costs by about 1.34% just to stay even with where you started. Just to stay even with where you started. That 10% price cut requires that you offset it with a 13.4% cost reduction just to break even. And when you're in a service business where something between 60 and 70% of your total costs are going to be involved with human resources, that means people have to go. Doesn't matter how powerless you run, doesn't matter how you change the configuration of your office and go paperless. When a single expense category represents 60 to 70% of total costs, you have to attack it. And that means you hire fewer people, you keep them on fewer hours, you put them on contract instead of salary, you spend less money on professional development, you do all the things that basically turns that person, that employee, that staff member, that service provider, it turns them into a clerk. A clerk. A nameless clerk that could be replaced with a whim. And so what happens is eventually, of course, the quality of your service suffers, doesn't it? And when the quality of your service starts to erode, what happens to the customer's willingness to pay your already depressed price? It decreases too, doesn't it? So here's the cycle. We cut price because we couldn't think of any way more creative to make money. Margins got compressed, we cut costs. But we cut the wrong costs. Quality suffered, prices fell, back where we started. Now what do? Well, I can't raise price, I've just destroyed quality. So what do? Another round of cost cuts. And quality suffers and prices fall over and over and over again. Technically, we call this process incremental product degradation. On the street, we call it efficiently going bankrupt. Welcome to Burke's. Welcome to Edens of Canada. Welcome to Sears. Welcome almost happened to the Bay. Welcome to any number of iconic brands that lost their way. Why? Because they thought they could price cut themselves to profitability. A price cut requires a cost reduction. Nobody ever cost reduced themselves to greatness. You build greatness on a platform of quality. You build greatness on a platform of value. Technology is often considered the redeeming factor, the great savior. You know, forget all this expensive advertising stuff. We'll do social media. We'll have an e-commerce site. It'll be really cheap. You know, we'll never have to have production costs, or we'll just replace everything with technology. Well, the reality is that's a very long-standing solution. In fact, the economists call it the substitution of capital for labor. You and I refer to it as the act of automation. And why do we automate? Well, we automate because machines are infinitely easier to manage than people. Right? Machines don't get sick. Machines don't take vacations. They don't whine. They don't bitch. They don't complain. They don't form unions. Machine doesn't work. What do? You kick it. You can't do that to people anymore. And the economics of this substitution are so compelling. Because every time I increase my automation, I increase my fixed cost. Every time I increase fixed cost by 1%, profit goes down, but only by 2.3%. And what that tells you is this. I can increase my automation and my fixed cost by, let's say, 3%. And if I do that, my profitability may seem to drop by 6.9%. But if, as a result of the automation, I can take 1 single percent out of my variable cost, I'm almost a whole percentage point more profitable. And that's why you're checking yourself out at grocery stores. That's why increasingly banks don't want you in the retail branch. Banks want you on the ATM network, or better still, they want you offline. The transaction that costs $1 to perform in a bricks and mortar retail bank, that same transaction, when it's performed using an ATM, comes in around 35 cents a pop, with the added benefit that we will pay 35 cents for the convenience of 24/7 access to our money. And if the bank can migrate us off the ATM and onto online banking at home, that same transaction that's $1 in the branch, 35 cents at the ATM, comes in somewhere between 7 to 12 cents a transaction, and we will pay 15 cents for the convenience of banking at home at 2 a.m. naked in front of our desk. And we wonder why banks continue to make record profits even through the recession. It's not because they're gouging you. It's because they understood the principle of automation, the substitution of capital for labor. The problem is we haven't keyed into the fact that it doesn't work quite all right all the time. Let me give you an example. Welcome to Queen's University. Want to speak to somebody in the School of Business? Press 1. Faculty of Arts and Science? Press 2. Engineering? Press 3. Law? Press 4. Want to hear more choices? Press 5. Want to hear the list again? Press 6. You indicated the School of Business. Welcome. Want to speak to somebody in marketing? Press 1. Human Resources? Press 2. Finance? Press 3. Accounting? Well, you may want to get a life. Tell me something. What do you do when you encounter that automated receptionist?
Hang up.
Well, who said press 0? You did, sir? What is your name, sir?
Michelle Work.
Sorry?
Michelle Work.
Michelle? You know, Michelle, we have a name for people like you. You know what we call them, Michelle?
No.
Margin-sucking maggots. Well, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to insult Michelle, but think about it, you know? I developed this automated receptionist. I put in the hardware and software. Why? So I could fire the human operators. Then Michelle calls up. He presses 0. Now what? Now I'm still stuck with the cost of the hardware and software, and I've got to go back, tail between my legs, and rehire the human operators. Why? Because Michelle doesn't want to talk to my machine. He doesn't know who he needs to talk to. His needs are complex. He's special. It's all about you, Michelle, isn't it? Well, you know, the unfortunate thing is when Michelle's a customer, it is all about him, isn't it? Because peculiarly, that same volume mentality, that same fixation with volume says that when Michelle leaves my firm to go buy from someone that will let him interact with a human being, I have to replace him with a new customer. And that's when the economics of customer loyalty kick in. Because we know that depending upon your industry, it's going to cost you 5 to 8 times more money to acquire a new account than it will to retain and service an existing account. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face. Now, I'm not saying automation is always wrong, because clearly it isn't, right? We are always happy to pump our own gas. Why wouldn't we? It's simple, it's easy, it saves us money, and it saves us time, because we don't have to wait for the gas jockey to finally get to our car. But aren't there times when we don't pump our own gas? Like most of this winter, when it was freezing cold, ice storms, raining, we're dressed up, we don't want to smell of gas. There are always instances where we're prepared to pay more to get something that the automated solution won't deliver. And frankly, there are times when the automated solution is just wrong. Any of you check yourself out of a grocery store? Ever do that? Canadian Tire experimented with self-checkout. Those of you who have ever checked yourself out of a grocery store know that the bane of your existence in that circumstance is being asked to take the last item out of the bag, rescan it, and put it back. Right? You ever tried doing that with a lawnmower? Snow tires? Doesn't work quite as well, does it? Nice idea, just doesn't quite work in this situation. The jury is still out. What about volume? I mean, isn't that the whole motivation for doing this in the first place? You know, the idea here is actually quite smart. It says, I don't mind making a little bit less profit on every unit I sell if I'm selling a lot more units in the process. And man, that's a trade-off I would make in a heartbeat if I could. Right? It's about profitability, not about margin or even about volume. It's profitability. The problem we have is this. For the average North American business, every time I increase my sales by 1%, By acquiring a new customer, I only improve my profits by 3.3%. And what that tells you is this: if the only way you can build volume is cutting price, then every time you cut price by 1%, you need to increase your volume by about 3.4% just to break even with where you started. Want to give them 10% off? Go for it. As long as you can show me it's going to generate 34% more sales, we'll break even. 34% more sales. I can't think of too many product categories where we would see that kind of response to a price cut. Maybe retail gas. You know, retail gas will line up around the block 6 times for 1/10 of a cent a liter. Most any other product category, you're not going to see that kind of price cut. You're going to have to give people something significant. Right? The benchmark I keep hearing about right now is that price cuts don't have any effect until they exceed 15%, because at anything less than 15%, all you're doing is paying my tax. 15 times 11 is a lot more than 100, folks. 15 times 11 will make you unprofitable. The dilemma we have then is this. We know definitively, and I should tell you, by the way, the numbers I showed you reflect the North American average. But that relative ranking of impact, price number 1, cost number 2, volume number 3, that rank order of impact applies no matter what your industry, no matter what the time period, no matter what your geography. It doesn't matter if you're big or small, big town, small town, it just doesn't matter. Those numbers are hardwired into how we develop income statements. It's an artifact of the accounting system. There's nothing anyone can do to change it. The only thing that changes is the size of the numbers in particular cases. And so we know definitively that nothing destroys a business faster than your inability to maintain margins. And you know what the funny part is? Oftentimes, the number one reason that we lose sight of this is that we want to grow our business. Yes, you heard me right. We want to grow our business. In our entrepreneurial hearts, we want to grow our business, and that ultimately destroys margins. And let me give you an example. Let me give you an example using one of my all-time favorite brands, Starbucks. See, I love Starbucks. I love Starbucks, number one, because I have this coffee addiction. But I love Starbucks as an academic because Starbucks built their business at textbook plan. They started with the most fundamental of all things that every academic will tell you. They developed a mission statement. Now, they didn't have one of these airy-fairy mission statements, we're a high-quality firm dedicated to creating value for our customers through innovative applications of new technology by leveraging our number one asset, our people, in a socially responsible way. They didn't do that. Instead, they went for short and sweet. Starbucks' mission was, quote-unquote, to create a refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world. Now, that may sound airy-fairy, artsy-fartsy, West Coast, Birkenstock toting mission statement. But think about it. If you really think about it, that mission statement has massive operational implications, doesn't it? A refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world. So you tell me, hard yellow plastic chairs or upholstered furniture? Real planks or fake planks? Wood or metal? AM radio or Nora Jones in the background? Coffee dispensing machines or baristas brewing it in front of you? Pretty simple, isn't it? Starbucks implements that mission, they execute it to a T. Sales take off, Starbucks grows, and it grows like crazy. It grows so fast and so far that Starbucks decides they're going to have a stock offering, an IPO, initial public offering. They're going to make a fortune cashing in their stock. But the stock market's a demanding mistress. The stock market wants either dividends or continued growth. And so Starbucks starts to expand the number of Starbucks branches that it has. And all of a sudden, they're showing up in every little town and borough, everywhere around the world. In fact, some places are getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 Starbucks within their city bounds. In some places, 2 Starbucks are appearing across the street from each other. And Starbucks continues to grow until ultimately it runs out of neighborhoods that need, want, and have the ability to pay $4 for a cup of refuge in Haven. And all of a sudden, some store manager is saddled with a Starbucks branch in a neighborhood whose economics just don't jive with a $4 cup of refuge in Haven. And that manager knows that the only thing keeping him from being a successful Starbucks manager is that $4 price. If he could just cut the price a little bit, boy, he'd be golden. But Starbucks isn't going to let him cut the price. You know why? Because there's a whole bunch of other neighborhoods that do need, do want, and can afford $4 for a cup of refuge in Haven. And so when he shows up at head office says to him, "Suck it up and put on a helmet, princess. It's going to be a tough year." Welcome to the Canadian economy as part of the global economy. Welcome to the fate experienced by so many Canadian affiliates of multinational firms. If we aren't up to international economic standards, suck it up and put on a helmet, princess, because you could be replaced. Well, Starbucks thought they could replace them. Problem was they couldn't. And so Starbucks lost money. They lost money for 4 consecutive quarters. They lost so much money, in fact, that they fired the entire senior management team at Starbucks and brought back the founding CEO, a fellow named Schultz. And the first thing Schultz did, he closed down 30% of all Starbucks outlets around the world. Not by coincidence, most of them were the most recently opened Starbucks outlets. The ones in the neighborhoods that didn't need, didn't want, and couldn't afford a $4 cup of refuge in Haven. Lesson 1, you better know who you want to sell to. Because not all customers are created equal. Not all customers want what you have to sell, nor should they want what you have to sell. And you don't have to chase those customers who don't want, who don't need, or can't afford what you have to offer. But you better be there for those who do. You better be there for those who do. And so it shouldn't surprise you that the second thing Schultz did was he did a video conference to all of the Starbucks outlets around the world. And for 90 minutes, he said, first minute of the 90-minute presentation, he said, take all of the electric coffee dispensing machines, the ones we put in for cost reduction purposes, take them and trash them. And for the next 89 minutes, he retrained the staff. This is how we make coffee at Starbucks. He retrained them in how to make coffee the original Starbucks way. And he reminded them, we're not in the business of selling coffee, we're in the business of providing a refuge and haven from the hustle and bustle of this world. Unfortunately, I should add just as a postscript here, he couldn't extricate himself from all of the decisions. Some of them were already made, and he was locked in. Anybody ever visit a Starbucks at the airport? There's a little slice of hell for you. I know, I'm sorry, I love Starbucks, but I'm at an airport, I'm not looking for refuge in Haven. You know, refuge in Haven is the place down south I'm trying to get to. The drive-through Starbucks. The drive-through Starbucks. Talk about an oxymoron. I mean, I don't know about you, but nothing says refuge in Haven to me like sitting in a drive-through lineup for 5 minutes, sucking exhaust while some dude is ordering his triple venti non-fat latte with a squirt of applesauce and a little bit of chocolate and cinnamon on the side. Man, that's a 5-minute beverage preparation. I got a coffee addiction. After 5 minutes, I'm into caffeine rage. I want to pull him out of his truck. I want to punch him in the mouth. I want to say, you want drive-through? You go to Timmy's. You go to Timmy's and you order your double-double. Yeah? You order your double-double, you'll get it 2 minutes guaranteed. You know why I know that? Because there's a little timer right under the Tim Hortons drive-through window. It starts at 2 minutes and it counts down right after you order. And every employee knows it hits 000 before you get your double-double, they're getting a mild electric shock through. You don't go to Starbucks at 4:30 Saturday morning before your kids' hockey practice for a refuge in Haven, do you? You go to Timmy's for a quick double-double and on your way, right? It's an entirely different product. It's an entirely different customer you're going after. It's an entirely different requirement to make your money. We know this for a fact. But the problem is that we always have this customer asking for a lower price. And why wouldn't they? I do it. I do it all the time. I'm always looking for the best deal I can possibly get. I'm always happy to pay less. You know? But you know what I'm waiting for? My consumer dream is I'm going to walk in someplace and I'm going to buy a product that I know sells for $10. And I'm going to lay down my $10 and they're going to say, thank you for your business, but please, take some back. It's too much. It's too much. Take some back, you know? We're interested in giving you a great deal today. Oh, hell, I'll take it. Of course I'll take it. I'm a bigger margin-sucking maggot than Michelle. The kicker is, I would have bought it anyways, wouldn't I? And so you just left a whole whack of money on the table. When marketers get into this pursuit of volume, they tend to make 3 big mistakes. Number one, they throw money at advertising. And I say they throw money at advertising as opposed to they manage an advertising campaign. Because if there's one aspect of marketing that I've come to realize people misunderstand the most, it's how advertising works and how to get the biggest bang for your buck when you do your advertising. Too often we think it's enough just to be plastered everywhere and be seen. When that doesn't work, what do? We have a sale. We cut price. We want to be the Walmart of our type. And when that doesn't work, if we're manufacturers, we offer incredible rebates and trade promotions to retailers. So how do we change the game? Well, the first thing we need to do is make certain that we don't confuse the term better value with lower price. Value is what every consumer is looking for today. In the most recent survey that I saw just last week, 69% of all Canadians place value as their #1 buying criteria. We all want a great deal. In fact, if you think about it, the recession really changed a lot of our buying behavior. Pre-recession, everybody wanted to be known by the brands they could afford to buy. You just bought a car, what kind of car did you get? Oh, I got a Mercedes. Oh man, you must be doing well. Yes, doing really well. Now we're embarrassed. We're embarrassed when we have to buy expensive things. And so, yeah, I got a Mercedes, man. You should have seen the deal I got on this puppy. Bought it on eBay. Clearance, it came off lease, incredible price. Everybody wants better value. The problem is that the ad agencies didn't like to talk about anybody's product or business as having low prices. And the reason was that going all the way back to post-World War II, when Japanese goods first started coming into North America, it was like Chinese goods coming in today, right? Yeah, the price was low, but the quality wasn't there. I don't know if you're old enough, but I can remember as a child growing up, made in Japan, man, it was crap, it was cheap, it was lousy, it was poor quality. Same things we hear about products coming in from China today, right? Didn't stay that way, of course, but Initially, that was the belief. So ad agencies would always tell clients, don't tell the public you have the lowest price. Instead, promote yourself as having the best value. And so all of a sudden, people started to equate in their minds this concept of low price and best value. And suddenly, everybody wanted to be a Walmart. The reality is, value is not low price. Value is a ratio of how much quality I give you at a given price. And when you think about it in those terms, if you're trying to appeal to today's value-conscious consumer, you actually have 4 different ways that you can attack them. You can start by giving them the same quality you always have at a reduced price. That's the scenario I just took you through. Right? That's the incremental product degradation. That's all that bad stuff that happens when you start manipulating price and nothing else. But there's a second way. A second way that worked very well, has worked very well during the recession. Let me illustrate this way. Here's the task. You have a 5-year-old child at home, and they're going to have a birthday party. And you've been given the task of buying balloons for that birthday party. Okay? Where do you go to buy the balloons? Who said dollar store? You did that? What's your name, ma'am? I'm sorry? Joyce. Joyce? You know, Joyce, we have a name for people. Dollar store, right? Dollar store. This is your kid. Once in a lifetime, they're going to turn 5 years old, and you're going to buy their balloons at a dollar store. Nice, really nice. Are you sure you don't want the balloon that blows up like the 14 times original size? The one that'll keep the air in it for 2 weeks instead of just 2 hours? How about the one that comes with a value-added freebie of a stick? Dollar store, huh? Dollar store. Nice. Really want to be your kid, eh? But it makes sense, doesn't it? It makes perfect sense. She doesn't want a balloon that's going to blow up 14 times the original size. The kid will get lost. She doesn't want the air to stay in it for 2 weeks. She wants the balloon to explode the moment the last little bugger leaves the house. The stick isn't a value-added freebie, man. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. She doesn't want any of those things, so logically she's not going to pay for them. She's going to go for minimum acceptable quality at the lowest possible price. Well, if you want to sell something at the lowest possible price, you have to have the lowest possible cost. And to understand how to get to the lowest possible cost, then you have to understand the basic economic concept. And that concept is called the Law of Diminishing Returns. It looks at the relationship between an output, like quality, and an input, like cost. This applies to advertising, it applies to sales force size, it applies to most every area of expenditure in business. Normally, we would expect this relationship between output and input to be pretty much consistent. You know, so if $5 buys you 1 unit of quality, we think $10 will buy you 2 units of quality, $15 will buy you 3 units of quality, and so on and so on and so on. But it doesn't work that way. Instead, the relationship looks more like this curve. And if you plot this out, what it tells you is this. When you first start doing something, like advertising, for example, spending a little bit of money gets you a pretty good return, right? But if once you've done that, you then said to yourself, I'm going to double my expenditure, you'll notice you don't get double the output, do you? In fact, you'll notice that each successive increase of expenditure of equal size brings about a smaller and smaller increase in output. In other words, the last few degrees of quality that you give anybody are the most expensive degrees of quality that you give anybody. Take a product like Tide laundry detergent. Tide is, by chemical formulation, the strongest laundry detergent you can buy in this country. It has the legitimate right to say it gets your clothes cleaner than clean, whiter than white, brighter than bright. And it does this because in its Tide Ultra format, it takes its basic detergent and it adds to this a number of powerful stain fighters. And if all we wanted, if everyone wanted clothes that were cleaner than clean, whiter than white, brighter than bright, then everyone would buy Tide. But that's not the case, is it? Because we know that we've got a whole bunch of little maggots like Joyce. Right? Doing the laundry for their 5-year-old kid that they don't care about. And she knows she doesn't need their clothes cleaner than clean, whiter than white, brighter than bright. Clean, white, and bright, that's good enough. It's good enough, you know. They're just going to get it dirty again, aren't they, Joyce? You really don't care anyways, do you? So you know what? The folks at Procter & Gamble say, fine, you want cleaner than clean, ultra, brighter than bright, whiter than white, we'll sell you Tide Ultra. But if you want just clean, white, and bright, we'll sell you a second product called Tide Basic. And so suddenly everybody's starting to realize, I don't have to service everybody with the same product. My store doesn't have to be mono-level in terms of price. I can have a high-end section and I can have a low-end section. I just have to make certain the customer can distinguish between the two. This is not a new strategy. This is Lexus and Toyota. This is Acura and Honda. This is Hotel Intercontinental and Holiday Inn Express. This is Queen's University in Scotland. Yes, folks, we practice what we preach. This is Starbucks, and this is Seattle's Best. Starbucks owns Seattle's Best. Seattle's Best is structured to compete against the Tim Hortons of this world. It's not a refuge and haven. It's a place to go for a quick hit of coffee while you're getting groceries, while you're out running errands, or what have you. Everybody has come to the sense that you can't make a promise you're not prepared to keep, and you can't keep a promise of high, exceptional quality at bargain basement prices. Not if you want to stay in business. Fortunately for us, there are two others, though, that are even better to do than this. And they both involve sourcing this new value not in lower price, but in higher quality. In fact, in the most extreme form of all, we not only not decrease price, we actually increase price a little, but we offset that by increasing quality a lot. Let me give you an example. Is anyone here an American Express Centurion? No? You know, if you were a Centurion, the invitation would have come in a black wood box, felt lined. No? It would have come with an invoice, $5,000 initiation fee, and $2,500 a year for membership. All of this for a credit card, you know, same as the one you probably get for free. Now, if I said to you, how do they do this? You'd probably think, well, it's American Express, you know, it's being sold on snob factor, people trying to impress each other with their black titanium card. Well, maybe so, but I gotta tell you, $5,000 initiation, $2,500 a year, you gotta be one insecure puppet if you're relying on American Express to convey your greatness. What most people don't realize, though, is this. When you take an American Express Centurion membership, once a year, you are allowed to take a companion on a flight with you for free. As long as you're traveling business class, they travel for free. So let's suppose you're Centurion quality income. What do? Well, maybe once a year you happen to fly to Japan. First class, $10,000. Your partner gets to come along for free. In other words, the first year of your membership, you've not only recovered the initiation fee, but you've also paid for the card the first 2 years. The second year you do this, the card is actually making money for you. Isn't that bizarre? They're charging you money and making you money in the process. But it gets even better. So I sent in my membership. And I get a phone call one day. And the person at the other end of the phone says, is this Ken Wong? And I said, yes. And they said, is this Ken Wong, the James Taylor fan? I said, well, yeah, I am. Can I ask how you know that? Because it's kind of creeping me out. And I said, well, we noticed that you bought tickets for a James Taylor concert in Tanglewood, New York last year, and you charged it to your American Express card. I said, yes, I did. And they said, well, did you know that James Taylor and Carole King are on a reunion tour? They're going to be in Toronto in 2 weeks' time. Would you like to go? And I said, well, yeah, I would have loved to have gone, but I'm sure they're sold out by now, and the tickets must be a fortune. Well, actually, they said, as a Centurion, we'd be happy to send you 2 tickets, compliments of American Express.
You said no, right?
No, I'm a maggot. Now, I'm feeling really good, right? Because I just got these tickets for free, and I got to tell you, when I told my partner I was shipping off $5,000 initiation fee, she thought I was nuts, right? So here I am. I'm going to get my ultimate revenge. I walk in like the big hunter, Me hunter, here's my prey. I've got my 2 free American Express provided tickets, retail value $300. I throw them on the table, I say, there, that's why you're a Centurion. And my partner says, yeah, now they just owe you $4,700 more. The point of the story, if I told you you have $5,000 to give a customer a random act of kindness, if I told you you had $50, use it at your discretion, do something to put a smile on a customer's face, would it be hard for you to think of a way to spend that $50? So all you got to do is find something that they want bad enough that they pay the $50 for, and you're doing them an enormous favor, aren't you? Just like American Express did for me. And the reason you want to do this instead of cutting price, 2 big reasons. Anybody get a watch with a stop hand? Or a second hand digital watch? Anybody? Michelle, you got one? Perfect. All right, I want you to time me on something, Michelle. You say start, I'll say stop. You tell me how much time has elapsed, okay? Whenever you're ready.
Start.
Done. How long?
Second and a half.
Second and a half. That's how long it takes to make a price cut. Think about it. Price cut is a stroke of a pen. That's the beauty of price as a competitive weapon. The moment I write down a smaller number, I've affected the price cut. So let's suppose you make the price cut. You make the price cut and customers see it and they flock from the doors of your competitors, they flock to the doors of your store or your business because they want to save that penny. Right? Your competition sees them leave, sees where they're going. Question, how long does it take the competition to match your price cut? Second and a half. All right. Now, instead of that, let's try this. You sit there and you say to yourself, rather than decrease my profitability by 11.1%, I'm going to take that penny I would have given them in the form of a price cut, and I'm going to spend it. I'm going to spend it to give them 724 customer service. I'm going to spend it to give them a more user-friendly web interface so that they can shop even when my store is closed. I'm going to spend it to give them better information, a story behind the product, so that they understand that that $4.99 taffeta-bagged hunk of soap is not the same as the 2 for $1 ivory soap they're buying in Loblaws. You do that and customers respond, How long does it take the competition to follow your lead? A lot more than a second and a half, huh? You know what? You just identified a longer strategic window of opportunity. You just identified the time in life when you want to spend money on advertising and marketing. Why? Because for that period of time until the competition follows your lead, you have a legitimate right to stand up in front of any customer and say, you want to know why you do business with me? You want to know why you pay me a little more? This, I got it, they don't, you want it, you need it, I have it, no one else does. Guess what? Why does every man want to be alone on a deserted island with the target of their affections? It's a monopoly, man. Doesn't matter what you got, it's the best she's going to get. You're winning. That's a window of opportunity, right? There's a shipwreck and some new stud muffin blows up on shore, it's a whole different game, isn't it? Until they copy your lead, you win. Second reason is it's more efficient to create value with quality. And I didn't learn this from a textbook. I learned this firsthand. You see, I know I probably look to you like the ultimate college prof suit, you know, black suit, white shirt, red tie, very corporate. I have to tell you, I didn't always look like this. You know, back in the day, my hair was a little longer than it is now, maybe 2.5 feet. I didn't wear dress pants and suits. I wore hip-hugging blue jeans with 36-inch flares, dragging on the ground, covering my feet in water buffalo sandals, macrame belt, tie-dye t-shirt, guitar on my back. You know, singing the praises of free love because I'm so tired of paying for it. I was a hippie musician. I wasn't a very good musician, mind you, but you know, I did what I could. And fortunately for me, I had this capitalist streak, as did the rest of my band, because they weren't very good musicians either. And so we opened this music store and music school in Kingston, Ontario, where I currently live. And the store still exists to this day. We just celebrated our 35th anniversary. In fact, we're now the biggest store, as I understand it, between Montreal and Toronto. I'm not bragging when I say this because it achieved that status right after I sold my shares to go back to graduate school. Spurious correlation. But we were at a human resource discussion one night, you know, and I have to tell you, you see, because we were hippies, we didn't want to be your typical everyday capitalist, you know, making money on the back of the working class. And we were going to be benevolent employers. We were going to share the wealth. And so we had this compensation policy we put in place early on, and we said, any year we make money, we will have a bonus for everybody on staff. Okay? So first year we made some money, everybody got a $25 bonus. I know that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it was the 1970s. You know, it's like $6 billion today. Second year we made a little more money, we upped it to $50. Third year we made even more money, and so we're at the partners meeting trying to discuss whether or not to up it to $75. And as we're getting into this discussion, all of a sudden one of my two partners stands up and says, and I quote, he says, man, this is not groovy. This is not groovy, it's not cool, you know, 25, 50, 75, next year they're going to want 100, then they're going to want 200. You know, he said, we're setting an expectation here, we're setting a precedent. You know, we keep going at this rate, we're going to bonus ourselves out of business. In fact, he said, I don't even know why we're giving them cash. They're all a bunch of musicians, they're just going to spend it in the store anyways. So, he said, here's what I propose. This year, instead of giving them $75 in cash, let's give them all a $100 gift certificate to the store. He says this, my other partner looks at me, the two of us get a glint in our eye, we jump up screaming at the top of our lungs, far freaking out. Right on, my brother, right on, my brother. Now tell me something, and I have to stress here, we had not been inhaling that night. Why are we willing to give a $100 gift certificate when we are unwilling to give $75 in cash? Can only cost, well, not that bad, good, but yes, we are a value-added reseller. We are like every other retailer, a value-added reseller. $100 retail costs us $50. Moral of the story, when you create $1 of value through a price cut, it costs you $1. But when you create $1 of value through superior quality or even through free quantity, the cost of $1 of quality will always be less than $1 of cost. It is a longer strategic window. It is a more economically efficient way of building value for the customer. I notice we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to jump right to my last slide. I will make available the whole slide deck, though, through the organizers, and they can distribute it to you at a later point in time. And I'll include my contact information there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. My final comment to you, though, has to do with the experience you're going to have. I understand many of you are retailers, so I'll make this very specific to the retail trade. You know, we've talked a lot about resisting price, and we've talked a lot about the importance of creating value by giving better quality, by focusing that quality on the kinds of services that your specific clientele requires and values. And that is, of course, so important. What is equally important, however, is that you have to let the world know about those services. If you don't let the world know about those services, then for all intents and purposes, they don't exist. And of course, that's why we spend enormous amounts of time and effort crafting ads, financing those ads, and so on. Unfortunately, what we find is in so many cases, people forget that an ad is, more than anything else, a promise. It's a promise we make to a customer. And it sets the standard of expectation in that customer's eyes as to what they expect to receive when they give you a piece of business. So when a customer comes to your store as a result of an ad, and the customer doesn't receive the type of service, the nature of service, the friendliness of service, the customization of service that your ad purported that you would offer to them, they have a single word to describe that. They call it a lie. They call it a lie, and the advertising ceases to become believable, ceases to be effective. Lying, which is the worst form of advertising, lying destroys relationships, and relationships are really what marketers are all about building. We know this. We don't need theory and economics to prove it. We know it because we tell it to our kids, don't we? Johnny, Janie, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how bad, just don't lie to me. Because the moment you lie to me, you alter the fundamentals of our relationship. Next time you make a mistake, even if it's an innocent human mistake, I can't give you benefit of the doubt anymore. You lied to me, I'm going to assume now, automatically, that you made that mistake in a deliberate attempt to circumvent my authority. You lie to me, there's going to be new standards of accountability and transparency. Don't leave the house without your ankle bracelet. Want you calling home every 90 minutes so I know where you are, because I can't trust you to make good decisions. I can't trust your economic development to not sacrifice the quality of life in our community. Don't even think about going to somebody's house until we've had them over for dinner and are sure there are kinds of people. Don't you bring any of that outside money into our community unless we know that it's the right kind of money to fit with our values and our quality of life. You can see how this advertising, if not done properly, ends up creating a world of problems, not just for our stores, not just for our businesses, but indeed for our overall community. Because all of a sudden, those two, what should be mutually supporting aspects, great quality of life as a private citizen and a booming, prosperous local economy. Instead of coming together, they become opposites. They become things we're being asked to trade off. And once that happens, it doesn't matter how many speakers you bring in here, you will always be mired in a world of that trade-off. Right? The importance here for the community is the same as the importance for the retail store. As much effort as you spend crafting advertisements to the public, spend the same time crafting advertisements to your employees. Because no matter how hardworking your employee is, if they don't know what the expectation the customer has when they walk in the store, they can't satisfy that expectation. And so even though they're working hard, even though they're trying to earn a good day's wage, they are in effect seen as lying to the customer, and the relationship breaks down. The same applies in this instance when it comes to economic development. As much money as we spend pitching this to citizens, pitching this to government, we also have to pitch the same message to local business. We're only as good as our integrity. If we really believe we can have prosperity and a high quality of life, then we have to demonstrate that and make a commitment to it in every individual decision that we make. You do that and you'll find prosperity is not something you'll have to chase. There aren't many communities who have been able to do it. Prosperity will chase you, and God, I hope it does. Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Ken? Far out. Ken, that was an awesome talk, I'm sure, very inspiring. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to ask General Sales Manager of Pioneer Broadcasting, Dave Hughes, to come up and just say a few words of thanks.
Thanks, York. I think, Ken, the audience here, this is a very good turnout tonight, so thank you all very much for coming. I think they got some tremendous value and information from a very quality-driven speaker. I really thank you very much, Ken, for joining us this evening. As a token of our appreciation for you coming this evening, we have a Prospering Northumberland. This is a book on Northumberland that we think you'll enjoy, and a little piece of art from one of our retailers, Hazelton, in Copeland. So we'd like to thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I think we're going to stay around for a few minutes.
Certainly I will.
If anybody has any questions, maybe you're somewhere afraid to ask the question now, but certainly we'd love to have you join us for a few minutes following this evening.
Be delighted to do
Very
so.
entertaining speaker. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. We do have a few more prizes to give away, which we will take care of now. Dave is going to draw the names for us. First, we're going to give away an advertising certificate from Northumberland today. I'm not going to answer that, Mr. Sid. He's our very own Centurion, by the way. Rhonda Cook. All right, next we have UCB Canada, 90.7 FM. I'm getting old, I got a little further away. Dave Windwink. From Northumberland News. That would be better back there, thank you very much. Laura Reevy. You know what, we're going to hang on to that one for just a second, okay? From Classical 103.1. Stop shaking. Nick Reed. from us, from Brand News Broadcasting, Star 93.3, Magic 96.7, and 107.9 The Breeze. York, Deb Payne. From NorthumberlandView.ca, Chris Belche Portnesto. He's standing over there with the camera.
Pronounce that one, York.
Julian Shirga. And now let's work with Julian. I can get back. You got 2 more gift baskets.
Yours or yours?
All right, we're going to hang on this one for just a second. We'll put that over here. We have 2 great gift baskets as well. The first one we're going to give away is from Mrs. B's. Awesome job with this basket.
That's the one everybody wants.
Yes.
Sure. We might as well just keep the same thing going. You pick the ticket. I'll try and read the name. Robert Granger. And we have a gift basket from the Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce. Is the bottom going to fall out of that? Quite possibly, so we will pick that up from the bottom.
And Wong. No, just kidding.
And Ray Craft. That's just going to about wrap things up for us. You got a chance, though, to stick around, chat with each other, chat with Ken as well. But first, I'm sure everybody here knows we have a very big event coming to Northumberland County, May 30th through June the 1st. It is the 2014 Ontario Parasport Games, and there's been a committee headed up by Paul Macklin, Dan Borwick, huge on that as well, is right up here beside me, Carrie Stride, the 3 people that are making this thing really happen, with the help of a huge committee and a lot of volunteers. We made the announcement the other day about the opening ceremonies. They're coming up on May the 30th at the Coburg Community Center. Alan Frew from Glass Tiger will be performing. Tickets are just $20 each, an incredible price to get in to see Alan Frew. Tickets are limited, though. You know the size of the CCC. Make sure you get yours. We do want to show you a little something here about the Parasport Games that are coming to Northumberland County. Take a look, Gary.
Your volume is not there. Your sound here on the right hand side.
You can tell this is live. You can tell this is live, right?
They say I woke up and overcorrected and ended up going into a ditch backwards and rolling. After my accident, I was looking to get back into the regular routine that I had before I was injured, so getting into hand cycling was pretty much the closest thing to working out and being able to go out and ride and have the freedom of doing something on my own. And then it just got to the point where it wasn't fast enough. I wanted to go faster, I wanted to go longer. I woke up early one morning to go to work. I fell asleep at the wheel and ended up drifting off the road a little bit. And they say I woke up and overcorrected and ended up going into a ditch backwards and rolling my car a few times. And I was ejected out of the driver's seat window when the car rolled on top of me, which broke my back. People look at me weird when I say this, but I'm in a better place now than what I was before the accident. I had a lot of doors shut when I lost the use of my legs. Twice as many doors as open now. Here's a prime example. I'm talking about a hand cycling. Like I never would have dreamed of being able to do this kind of stuff. And here I am. So the sport's broken up into 4 different divisions, H1 through H4. H1 being your quads and then H4 being your amps, and each division in between is based on your disability. Typically there's 2 different races. You have your road race, which varies up to about 45K, that's the longest we do. And then you have your time trial, which is individual. It's you against the clock. So everyone's set off at a different time, and then it's the best time wins. Everything on the hand cycle is down with the upper body. We have our legs strapped in because some of us have spasms in our legs, so you don't want to be going 30 kilometers an hour and your legs pop out. And then the bike is pivoted in the middle. When we're turning, the whole front forks actually move back and forth to make it turn. You know, you go to a race and everyone's there just to be number one. And I think because we don't have the use of our legs, we kind of push ourselves even more. But my main goal is Rio in 2016, and if not, then Tokyo in 2020. Most people look at someone that has a disability and think that they're not able to get active. So for them to see the hand cycling or wheelchair rugby and see how competitive everyone is and how hard the sport is, I think it opens a lot of eyes.
The competition taking place here in Brighton, by the way, and Coburn as well. We also have the basketball game taking place at ENSS on the Friday. Tickets are on sale now, by the way, for opening ceremonies. The events to go and see as a spectator are absolutely free. There's no charge for those. The only thing there is a charge for is the opening ceremonies. Again, Alan Frew is coming from Black's Tiger. It's going to be an awesome night. Hopefully we'll see you there. We do have some flyers at the back. You can find out where the tickets are available. Ticket sales, most likely, they'll be all gone by like May the 15th, so you want to make sure you get yours as soon as you can. That's pretty much going to wrap things up here tonight. We'd just like to say a huge thank you to Sherry Hamilton from the Brighton Chamber for helping us and hosting this event here tonight. Fantastic. We worked through this throughout the year. Thank you everybody who helped out for this. And of course the Brighton Curling Club for providing bar service tonight. Thank you very much. And we have one more draw to do before we say goodnight, or give you up to yourselves to network. We do have a pair of tickets to the opening ceremonies for the 2014 Ontario Parasport Games.
Can this one please be my name?
Steve and Toby. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out once again, Professor Wong.